Hey guys, it's West here, back with another episode of the Beginner's Progression series. We're back after a long time. I looked at the video of the last update that I made to this series, and it was actually back in April. I can't believe it. It's been way too long. I'm really sorry for leaving you guys hanging for so long. But we've got some stuff to talk about. I've been working on plenty of stuff and doing a lot of theory crafting in the meantime as well. I have been farming this whole time, so I hope you guys have been too, if you guys were following along with the series. Because in Summoners War you'll find a lot of points in time where there's really not much you can do besides farm to get better runes, because no matter how many monsters you have or what quality of monsters you have, if you don't have the runes to put on them, then you're not going to be able to use them correctly or to their fullest potential. So since the last video, there's some new 6-stars that I want to bring attention to. First is the Fire Beast Hunter. This is the damage dealer I am choosing for my raid team. So the reason I'm choosing him is because he's got this brand and HP recovery disturb on skill 2, which is really nice, and it's on a 2-turn cooldown, so it's going to have pretty decent uptime. He's got a chance to ignore defense every time he attacks, and the chance to ignore defense is going to increase as the number of harmful effects do. And in raid, there should always be 4 harmful effects on the enemy. There should be slow, there should be defense break, there should be attack break, and there should be recovery block. And if those 4 core debuffs are on the enemy, then he has the 50% chance to ignore defense with both of his attacks, not just his first attack, but his first and his second. And in addition to that, he also brings the brand, which is going to increase the overall damage of your raid. So it's going to be pretty nice. The only potential downside to this unit is he is passive-based, and any passive-based unit has a chance of being oblivioned in raid, because the boss does do AoE Oblivion with one of his attacks. So you do want to keep that in mind when you're building them, and you're going to want to speed tune your team accordingly. Now, his stats aren't where I want them to be right now, but I was just trying to build him up, skill him all the way up, and I've been playing around with him. His damage is actually pretty fun to look at. He does a lot more damage. It's a little bit deceiving how much damage he does. Actually, with his second skill, if it ignores defense, it can be around 35-40k is what I've noticed in Guild Wars. So I've also 6-starred Darien. I've talked about this unit in the past too for damage mitigation for your early stages of Giants B10. He's amazing. He helps you get those early clears before your team really has the stats to survive. Now you can see he's got plenty of defense and a little bit of HP too. His HP is about 5,000 lower than I would like, but 25,000 HP and 1,600 defense is not bad at all. The other thing I worked on is hitting some decent resistance. I wanted at least 60%. The reason why is this account will be raiding with a 41% resistance lead from Tessarian. Now, if you're not raiding with that, you're probably going to be raiding with somebody that has a Diaz, or maybe you yourself have gotten yourself a Diaz, and you'll be able to take advantage of this 30% resistance lead, which means you only have to get up to 70% resistance in order to be 100% resistance effectively. So just things to keep in mind when you're building up your units is to not stack too much of a stat that's going to be useless. Of course, if you hit 100% resistance, you'll always be safe, but I think for the most part you're going to see resistance leads. I think it's a pretty core leadership skill in raids. The other units we're looking at to really turn into raid units soon are going to be Beladion, we're going to be 6-starring Kona Maya, and of course Lauren as well. She's going to be our other damage dealer, but more of a utility unit in our raid team. So if you're curious about a Lauren build, I actually just built Lauren on my main account. I'll go ahead and pop her up on the screen to show you guys what her stats look like, the way I put her together. I put her on a speed crit damage HP build, and she's built in my secondary raid team on my main account. And this is because she brings good attack bar, passive based attack bar reduction, much like Hua, except per attack she can actually reduce more. Now if you see, every single attack, Hua reduces the attack bar by 25%, right? And if we go over to Lauren, you can see that she reduces it by 20% with each attack. Now, you have three opportunities to reduce attack bar. So that's 60% on the first skill, and that's 40% on the second skill, both much greater than Hua's 25%. Now what you do lose the crit rate lead, but you also gain this backup disturb HP recovery, which is really, really nice. because having a heal block on your team or a backup heal blocker on your team is going to bring a different level of consistency to your debuffs, because if the boss doesn't have heal block on him, if the raid boss doesn't have heal block on him, when he attacks you and strips off your beneficial effects from anybody on any one of the teams, he's going to heal a pretty significant amount of health and totally negate any damage you've done so far. So having the backup is nice. Attack bar reduction is nice. The passive defense break is also pretty nice. You're going to consistently have a defense break, which is it's just there kind of as a backup, as a cushion. It's not to replace any defense breaker you have in your team, whether it's the Fire Panda, whether it's whether it's Belladine, because it's only one turn and it's not 100% harmful effect rate, but it is a backup. In addition, you also have the attack speed slow, also much like Hua has. So you'll notice pretty similar kit to Hua overall. She doesn't have the speed scaling, but you could argue that she has slightly more utility, or a safer utility, I should say, because more attack bar reduction and more backups on your debuffs. The defense break as well as the heal block. So she's the unit that I'm going to be using there in Raid. We also fused a Beretta on a side note that we'll be using for TOA. But we're going to hop into the Rift of Worlds here and go to Raid, and we're going to make our own private party so we can just go ahead and put together a team. I would urge you to do this if you're thinking about joining Raid, just to think about what units you could be using. Just organize it in your head, try to play it out, think about what team you're going to run, how the team's going to work, how the skills are going to play out. Do you really have everything you need in that team? This is what our team's going to look like when we hop into a raid run. Now, we don't have any significant leads, because you can see a lot of these units don't have leads. We only have the 18% attack lead. Now, one thing we can do to fix that, if we're really desperate for a leadership skill in this team, is you could actually fuse the Fire Panda. The Fire Panda would take the place of Belladine. You have plenty of heals from Colleen, and the heals from Belladine can be seen as redundant, I guess. And you could replace Belladine with the Fire Panda. The Fire Panda has really high base defense. He's got a defense leadership skill. He's got even more backups on a lot of the good harmful effects that you want to put on the boss there. And this will give you stronger frontline, potentially. You'll get more bang for your buck in terms of runes out of him. And in addition to that, you'll get a defense lead, which is pretty nice. If you do have a Hua, you can actually sub out the Light Cowgirl for Hua to get the crit lead. There's all sorts of substitutions you could do. This slot right here with the Fire Beast Hunter is very, very versatile. Because with the rest of this team right here, if we just look at these 4 units, these are the 4 most important units to your team. Bella could arguably be replaced with Fire Panda as well. But if you're just looking at the farmable units that are just really easy to get, these would be the ones to go with for your raid team. Now from here, your other 2 DPS, you should have 1 utility-based DPS or attack bar reducing DPS to bring your team some consistency, so they don't need a ridiculous amount of speed to keep lapping the boss or to keep getting their turns off. Your attack bar reducing DPS essentially is buying turns for the rest of your team to do what it needs to do. In this case, my attack bar reducing DPS is Lauren. This is going to buy us some extra time to get heals off. Maybe Colleen derped the first time. Maybe her skill wasn't up when it needed to be. So it can buy her an extra turn to go ahead and get the attack buff off, or the heal block off, or the attack break on the boss, Or maybe it's buying time for Konamaya to go ahead and cleanse the stun off of your DPS before the boss has a chance to really, dig into you and do a lot of damage. And it's also buying time for your DPS to move, because in most cases, your DPS should not be built on a just pure, super squishy damage dealing build. Because if it is, it's going to die. In this case, this Nangrim would die. You ideally want about 1,000 defense through substats if you can, but more importantly, you want to hit around the 20,000 HP mark, 25,000 to be more safe. So attack crit damage HP is very common. That's what I've built a lot of units on for raid teams in the past. You could also do speed crit damage HP if they're a speed nuker, if you're using someone like Lauren, if you're using someone like Hua, another attack bar reducing damage dealer. and you could add some, some stability to the team that way, because it doesn't matter how much damage they do if they only get a chance to do it one time. The small exception to this being the Katarina Balaguer team, which I'm gonna attempt to make a semi-farmable version of in the future. We'll see how that turns out. It may be a big hot mess, but Katarina and Balaguer are farmable, so we may try that in the future. But I just want to show you guys what I've been working on in this account and what kind of Rift teams we're looking at, or specifically the Raid, because it's going to be pretty important once you get these high-quality Giants runes, once you're no longer seeing huge improvements every week, which if you're farming consistently, you should see a few runes every single week that are decent. Now, this is going to depend on whether you're earlier in the game or later in the game. Of course, if you're a G3 player, you're probably not going to be seeing many rune upgrades weekly, unless you're buying those re-up packs. And even then, you might not be seeing any huge upgrades. So that's what the team looks like now. Like I said, replacements, you could take out Lauren and put in Hua if you've pulled her. Otherwise, Lauren works for this slot. For Nangrim, the Fire Beast Hunter, you can replace him with Xiaolin. You can replace him with Tessarian potentially. Tessarian is also going to do increased damage based on the number of harmful effects. He also brings that resistance lead. There's plenty of damage dealer options that fit really well in these teams. Now, I know a lot of people have been trying twins lately, at least in some of the Raid 5 runs I've been jumping to, because the twins do bring really good set of harmful effects. If you bring Shaina and Sabrina specifically, the Fire Chakram and the Water Boomerang, they do bring like all the relevant harmful effects except for slow, and you're getting the attack bar reduction from Shaina. Now, do keep in mind, if you attempt to do a twins build, you'll do a lot of damage, but because you're killing the boss so fast, the boss is going to get a lot of those huge AoE attacks on your team, or the huge massive damage attacks it does on your team. That essentially revenges every so much health that you take away. So those twins are going to need a lot of damage, and they're going to need a lot of HP and defense as well. And I've noticed a lot lately that don't have that. So if you're thinking about building those for that as well, you can. Just keep in mind that you're putting your team and your allies at risk if your runes aren't up to par, if that makes sense. Another good option here is the Wind Vampire. The Wind Vampire can do massive damage based on harmful effects. Much like Brandia. Brandia is another good option for that slot. Again, these are, those are Nat 5s. Those are for, for players who have pulled them. It's just like a quality of life improvement, and your rune quality can be lower. Another option we'll talk about even more in the future is going to be the Dark Inagami Crow. He provides a branding effect with his third skill. He does damage based on harmful effects, and his second skill he teams up and gives another ally increased damage based on harmful effects. He's going to be the unit that we're building when we start speeding up our Raid 5 teams and we start focusing on more damage. So this is what the team looks like now. If you guys were curious, if you guys wanted to know what was going through my head, I'm always happy to hear your thoughts and opinions on the subject as well. And you might have noticed some fire units being built up, because as you may know with my main, the Wind Rift Beast has been the hardest Rift Beast for me to tackle and get a triple S on. So on this account, I wanted to be already ahead of the game. So I was building up some of those units for that as well. I'm not telling you guys to build these units yet. Build them at your leisure. But that's what I've been working on. Also, Fran. If you're doing the events, you're getting these ancient magic coins, and you can take these ancient coins and you could use them to purchase Fran pieces. You only need 100 coins to purchase one Fran, and from there you can skill her up with fairies. The Wind Fairy is a Nat 2 that drops some unknown scrolls. The Fire Fairy is a secret dungeon. You can reasonably obtain them. So get her. She's going to be really necessary if you want to be able to do this dimension hole. As you can see here, I haven't been able to really farm the dimension hole too much. I did get to the level 5 stage. However, I can't farm it consistently on the account. I'm building up Fran in an attempt to auto it, because without immunity, if you get to that last stage of the 5th level, it's very, very difficult to survive the heal block and the AoE defense break that gets put on your team. But if you haven't got one yet, the reason why you get one is because she's just so good everywhere. PvP, PvE, she's got the speed lead. I mean, she's a really good unit, and I guarantee if you guys have been doing these events, you guys can get these. So That's it for this video. Again, if you guys have any opinions on the raid, you guys have your own monsters or questions about monsters you're using in different parts of the game, always feel free to ask questions. I do my best to get back to every single comment that I see. But that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys, hopefully soon, in the next one. Hey guys, it's West again. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for more.